Hello, viewers. Today I'm in Seoul at the K-medi Center, and this is a very interesting place. I'm here to talk with Dr. Lee and Professor Park. They have a lot to say about Suul, and we can learn something from them today. But first of all, I'd like to know where we are. What is the K-medi Center?
Hi, Jeff. Thanks. Good to be here. Hello, everyone. We're at the K-medi Center. This is the multipurpose center. This is themed around traditional Korean medicine. So they have a museum downstairs, lots of experience facilities. We're sitting in their kitchen where they have demos and instructions. And the reason why we're sitting here is because the Korean Suul has a lot of connection with Korean traditional medicine. Yeah.
Great. And so I need to say, Dr. Lee is the director of the Suul Institute, and so that's one of the reasons we're talking with her today. I'd like to know, what is the Suul Institute and what is its purpose?
먼저 제프의 유튜브 TV에 나오게 돼서 매우 영광입니다. 그리고 이렇게 만나뵙게 돼서 반갑고요. 저희 우리술문화원은 2014년에 출범을 했습니다. 현재 농림축산식품부 소관 비영리 법인입니다. 현재 천여 분의 회원이 활동을 하고 계시고, 맨 처음에 경제계, 그리고 그 산업계, 그리고 또 학계에 계신 분들이 주축이 돼서 그렇게 설립이 되었습니다. 저희 목표는 전 세계 막걸리 벨트 구축, 이것을 가장 큰 목표를 두고 있습니다. 그것은 다른 나라에 서양에 와인 벨트가 있고 커피 벨트가 있듯이 인류사에 있어서 쌀수울이라는 그런 테마를 가지고 그에 못지않은 역사와 문화가 있었기 때문에 이것을 좀 더 폭넓게 조명하는 데 목표를 두고 전 세계 막걸리 벨트 구축, 이런 목표를 삼고 있습니다. 그것은 비단 한국만의 것을 한정한 것은 아니고 쌀과 여러 곡물을 가진 문화를 향유했던 여러 아시아권이요, 또 더 넓혀서 아메리카 대륙, 아프리카, 이걸 다 포괄하는 내용입니다. 그래서 결국은 지향하는 것은 인류 공동의 목표인 평화, 지향, 이런 데 가장 큰 목적을 두고 설립이 된 곳입니다. 네.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lee. So the Korea Suul Institute in Korean is 한국술문화원. Was formed in 2014 in Seoul. And its original name is 우리술과 천연 식초 연구의 향음. So this was formed by the leaders in finance and economics, and also academia. And its initial mission is to find a practical solution for the economy, rather than coming up with hollow statement and yet another ideological theory about peace and well-being. So the Korean Suul, as you know, it's been around for a very, very long time, and it's been suppressed for over 100 years, and there's many movement for commercializing Suul. But Korea Suul Institute that Dr. Lee has found with her associates is trying to make this culture into a world heritage. And one of its big mission is to build makgeolli belt, like wine belt and coffee belt. And the Korean Suul's mission is really to seek peace with a good practice of Suul making. Right? So let's see. So as I said, the UNESCO World Intangible Cultural Heritage, registering the Suul in that is actually its close mission, and would like to jointly register this with our family in the North Korea as well as the South Korea together, right, as one nation.
Right. Now, what are some things that the Suul Institute has done recently?
Okay. Yeah. A lot. Like actually, quite many things. In 2017, it published the Korea Suul, its assignment and outlook for next 100 years, and this is actually a book that Dr. Lee's written. This looks at last 100 years and seek what the assignment is, what the issue is, and where it is today, and then to plan its future for the next 100 years. Of course, a lot of people know us about hosting International Suul Conference. The first one was 2018, and that was my first association with Suul Institute. This was held in Seoul with many experts in microbiology, alcoholic beverage manufacturing from the U.S., including Dr. Patrick McGovern was here that year. Also, manufacturers of Belgian beer, French cognac, and brewers from Vietnam and Taiwan was here, talk about their practice. And for me personally, it was a humbling experience. We've learned so much about. There's so many smart people and wise people, in the world and in the history that brewed their own alcoholic beverage with what they had. So that was great, and of course we ran into pandemic, and last year, 2021, we did the second International Suul Conference, and I was organizing that from Los Angeles, and the physical conference was actually also in the Korea University, and there were a few hundred people joined. In Korea also, as well as the rest of the world. We had participants, of course. Jeff, it was great to see you there. It was a really great experience, and of course we were in a strange time zone. Of course, when you involve U.S. and the Europe and Korea, somebody has to be up in the middle of the night. But a 2-day conference was really well received, and I think we all really learned a lot from that experience. Dr. Lee and I jointly wrote another book, and subject is the Korea Suul branding, and that's my areas of expertise, and my contribution to Suul is to brand this item, right? And of course, the first thing that we started was to figure out what to call it. So we should be calling this Korean sake or Korean wine, and the word Suul has been around for a very long time. So we decided to spell this different spelling than S-O-O-L. We started using S-U-U-L. Since we looked into the etymology of the word, and it goes way back, and later when we have time, we'll show you the historical chart of the word Suul and where we think it came from. Of course, it's a very old word, so there's not too many written record on this, but Dr. Lee has done some extensive study on the history of the word, and I think the using you is more appropriate than O. So another thing, let's see. Recently, we have started a couple of new projects, and that's finding right, and that's ambitious project. We wanted to build 330,000 super microbreweries, and that number comes from the number of home brewers in 1916, shortly after the Japanese government during annexation.
So that's a high per capita number of breweries.
Yes. The brewing Suul was, on everybody's mission. I mean, every home in Korea, every household in Korea brews Suul, because Suul is part of our staple. It's a basis of our food. So throughout the Korea's history, there were no laws against or tax on brewing Suul. But during the turn of the century, the entire world goes into the mass manufacturing of all kinds of food, and Suul was alcoholic beverage was one of those things. And during that time, we were under annexation, like we were under Japanese rule, and of course they wanted to introduce the factory-made Suul. And in order to do that, they had to make brewing at home more difficult. And as the process, as a method, they started taxing the home brewing. Yeah, so everyone had to register the home brewery, and that number is about 330,000 households. Which actually were reduced to very few, because they quickly learned that buying factory Suul was a lot cheaper, and that was the whole plan. and it's not unique to Korea. I think the entire world kind of went through that. The alcoholic beverage is just one of many food that became mass-produced, and the factories of all kinds of food, were introducing more efficient method of making food, which is not necessarily healthier, as we all have learned. Yeah. So one of the most important project that the Suul Institute is thinking is we have to find our Suul, find our original Suul, the authentic Suul, and we can't really make our authentic Suul without having the authentic rice. So there's some movement in Seoul, very active movement in Korea by some ambitious people to bring back the lost indigenous rice. And there are about 1,500 different kind of rice that grew on this land, and its history is over 15,000 years old. The Korea is a very small country. Every village basically had their own rice, right? And they're very different than the rice that we make Suul with today. As you know, there are two different kinds of rice. They just visually, there's a short grain and then there's a long grain, right? So the Korea, Japan, and China, we tend to use short grain. Some regular, some sticky, but they're all Japonica varietal, which is very easy to grow. Big turnover, right? There's yield is actually huge, but not necessarily the healthiest rice or more tasty. And it's just one kind. So in order for Suul to regain its authenticity and also develop as something that can rival with wine, I think it's important to grow variety of rice. So we can start naming Suul with variety of rice, right? Like Chardonnay and Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon, right? So we will have a Suul that follows the name of the rice, right? Yeah. So those are two important projects that Suul Institute is starting to do. So we'll be joining hands with rice growers, the indigenous rice growers, and we'll make a kit. And we'll start with about 330 kits, but it'll grow to 3,300 and 330,000 kits that'll be sent to people who are willing to make a Suul. It'll be just 1 kilogram of rice, but it's going to be sort of symbolic of reinstating the old home brewers of Korea.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. And have you personally brewed with the ancient variety of rice?
Dr. Lee is actually farming rice. She doesn't look like a farmer, but she's done. So I'm visiting Korea for a short time, but every weekend I've joined her in her rice paddy and with digging ground, pulling out weeds.
Yeah, that's dedication.
So she employs a natural growing. So her field has lots of weed, bugs, and no pesticides and no power tools. So a little hard on your body, but it's more sustainable. Yeah. So she's learned that as soon as the machine touches the ground, then you need to use pesticides, and basically the earth dies, and you can't really grow a healthy rice, and it's much less sustainable that way. So the old rice, the people grow rice for thousands of years, before the introduction of electricity or the pesticides. So it's a movement to bring that all back.
Exactly. And one thing I'm very curious about is what both of you think of non-Korean brewers outside of Korea brewing Suul.
Would you like to say something about that?
We think I think non-Korean brewing Suul outside of Korea are the future of Suul, like you. And so Korea Suul Institute supports and want to collaborate with everyone who are interested in Suul. Yes.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. We have in Los Angeles, in California Suul Institute, we have almost weekly classes and people from all walks of life, including some beer brewers and wine makers, come, and they find it very surprising how easy it is, how fast it is. Very few things in life is easy and fast and good and cheap, right? And the quality of the beverage they produce, in a week is incredible, as you know. And also we find that the Suul can be localized, everywhere. When I started brewing Suul in Los Angeles, I couldn't really make the Sunuruk like they do in Korea. So I had to find what's available and sort of adapt to the situation that I was in. So obviously I was using different water, right? And I was curious what kind of Suul that would make, and it's different, but I think that's how you expand the boundaries of Suul. And as you, I think you introduced the Snowdrifter, right?
Oh yeah,
John,
John, the
right?
Brewing.
Yeah, and he's brewing in Helsinki, right? And he's making his own nuruk as well, and I mean it's admirable, that he's doing that, and I know a few other people who are doing it in the different parts of the world. So we know for sure that Suul can be adapted to a different geographical condition, right? So we absolutely support Suul, and I think it's the basic Korean values of a culture is to share. Korea has not really invaded any other country, right? And as you experience, you come to Seoul often, and it's the great hospitality. Right, and I think Suul is really definitely to share. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's a great concept right there. Do you have any advice for home brewers? I want to hear about philosophical advice, but also practical advice.
I think it's something that everyone should really be proud of, right? I think the pride is, I always tell the people who come and join in our workshop, that this is the momentous day, because you from this day on, your family is going to have your own Suul, right? Because we use natural microbes, existing microbes in the atmosphere, where every household is going to have their own set of microbes. So the Suul that you make in your house is going to be the only one, and other people cannot make. So I think it's that there's a pride that's involved, ownership, something that you can do with your family, with your children, and something that can go down in your family, right? So many generations from now, your family will have the same Suul that you have started. So I think that's really great. And earlier on, we were discussing about this topic, and Dr. Lee said I don't think we are in a position to advise anyone, because we're all still learning. So I think we could also learn from the person in a foreign country who's started to make Suul from the scratch, because we haven't tried that. So I think it's good to. I guess my only sort of contribution to this question maybe is to keep the values, right? Keep the original values of the culture, right? And the Korean culture is really in respecting the nature, right? So as you know, in Korean, we don't really use word make very much. Right, so we when we say we don't, instead of we make rice, we say we build rice, because that's what we do. Right? We say we place Suul, right? Because that's what we do. We place it, one after another, right? Yeah, and then when we made nuruk, and nuruk is it looks really similar to meju, which is the ingredient for soy sauce, right? So they're both fermented yeast and fungi, and we say we float, because that's what we do. We float it in the air, and then we let the nature do the rest. Right. Yeah. So that's a Korean value, right? So we respect nature. We work with nature, right? So we keep that value wherever you are, and adapt to your surroundings and available ingredients.
Great. So just for some closing words, what is the future of Suul?
Future of Suul.
어려운 질문인데. I think this interview is an excellent example of the future of Suul. Yes, I hope more and more people are interested in Suul. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Park. It's been great talking with you today. Thank you so much for your time. On viewers, if you want to see some earlier videos, I have brewed with Professor Park's Sunuruk. You can see those videos. I'll have links in the description and also links to the Suul Institute and the California Suul Institute in the description. Thanks for watching.